to serve and share what I feel is very important information. Information, honestly, I wish I had learned a lot earlier in life. Um, just a little bit about me. Um, 20 years in the medical field. Every year, getting those little raises, living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. It seemed like every time I would make a few extra dollars, I could find a way to spend those few extra dollars. But I just couldn't figure out how to get ahead financially. And I know this story is not just my own. It is a story that plagues everyone from all walks of life. And in talking about that, like, wouldn't you consider some professional athletes to be wealthy? And being wealthy is having all this money. Well, that might be a misconception. Let's talk about these professional athletes. Um, According to a 2009 Sports Illustrated article, 78% of NFL players are either bankrupt or under severe financial stress within 2 years of retirement, and an estimated 60% of NBA players, they go bankrupt within 5 years of retirement. And some really good examples of that. Let's talk about Adrian Peterson. How many of you know who Adrian Peterson is? My kids talk about Adrian Peterson all the time. Um, Running back with a successful 15-year NFL career, playing for Minnesota Vikings, New Orleans Saints, Washington Redskins, Seattle Seahawks, my children's favorite team in the world. And he earned over $100 million in his career, but he did not know what to do with his money. He made poor investments. He lived way beyond his means and ultimately ended up bankrupt after a Houston judge ordered that his assets be seized in 2024. And that story is a story you will hear repeatedly about professional athletes. So if professional athletes making hundreds of millions of dollars a year don't know how to handle a dollar, or what they should be doing with a dollar, what makes me think I know how to handle a dollar? I don't. It has taken some time to learn. um, of course, you all know Dennis Rodman. Same kind of situation for Dennis Rodman, living way beyond his means with his extravagant lifestyle. Cheryl Swoops, if you are a WNBA fan, she had a Nike endorsement deal with her own shoe line. Amazing woman. But she too didn't know what to do with her money, and she ultimately had failed business ventures and made poor investment choices. If someone had told her what we're going to learn tonight, things might have been different for her. Um, so, does having money make you wealthy? Not if you don't know what to do with your money. So put an 8 in the chat if you feel that most Americans don't understand how money works. Exactly, y'all. So let's get these slides started here. Give me just a second to share my screen. And we are off and running. So, wealth formula and what to do with the dollar, and how we're going to fix financial literacy for everyone. So, what is important about financial literacy? Well, let me tell you a story. So, growing up, I was raised in a typical middle class working family. We had enough to live well, take vacations, and as far as I knew as a child, we were doing great. We had the things we wanted and the things we needed. And it was ingrained into me every single day for, oh gosh, until my early 20s. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job. Well, I did that. I went to school. I got a bachelor's degree. I started studying for my master's degree. Um, I, I didn't feel like that was enough. I didn't get very far on that bachelor's degree. They also told me when I find that good job, hang on to it, don't let it go. And I did. I worked in the medical field for 20 plus years. Thought I was making great money and realized really quickly that wasn't the case. By my own poor decisions, of course. So, in this poverty language that I grew up with, you will see that the very first thing is go to school, get good grades, get a good job, keep a good job. I was also very much told that money is the root of all evil. The more you got, the more evil you were. And we believed it growing up. We absolutely believed it. We were told that the rich were robbing the poor, that money doesn't buy happiness. Well, I thought it did because I got everything I wanted. Apparently, that's not enough. And I see that now. Um, we also hear things like they don't pay much, or that the rich should pay more taxes, or my favorite, because we're living it right now, things have gotten really expensive. And that is the crazy part, because this is stuff I've been hearing for 40, 50 years now. And I would have loved to have heard the other side of this, the wealth language side. Go to school, get good grades, start a business, which is what my parents did, but they never taught us to do. Um, all in all, having a job is a great place to start, but it is not the place you want to finish. There is no loyalty there, but I digress on that one. It's called the corporate ladder, not the corporate bed. We're not supposed to stay there forever, you guys. We're supposed to do other things. And when we find out why we should be doing other things, it'll all make sense. Money isn't everything, but I believe, or I did for a long time, that it was the most important thing. Right up there with oxygen. I can't live without money. I can't pay my bills without money. But if I'm spending all my money, how am I supposed to stop working? How am I supposed to retire right? Well, nobody taught me those things. Um, Money is best exchanged for experiences, not things. Oh, well, I wish someone would have told me that a long time. I paid more attention on those vacations way back when. Because I haven't been able to take one in a minute. Um, don't work for money, but teach your money to work for you. Being the biggest one that hits me the hardest here, y'all, is don't work for that money. Teach your money to work for you. So how do we make our money work for us? Well, we're going to find out. Um, Let me tell you a little bit of a story about the reverse Robin alter ego I grew up with. The poverty language ingrained from the time I could walk until I was, gosh, I would probably say 5, 10 years ago even. This is the only thing that my family speaks of. That is what I call the reverse Robin Hood alter ego. They're not, it's not a Robin Hood stealing from the rich to give to the poor situation. It's the reverse. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few slides. So what is the difference though between the poverty language and the wealth language? Would you all agree that it's mindset? If you agree, put an 8 in the chat. So This is Mr. Suni Samad, my business partner and equity partner here at OIC. This is his favorite quote, everyone. And it's a Tony Robbins quote that says, "You are either mastering money or money is mastering you." Really, financial control is a choice. And without it, money is going to tell you what you can do. And I'm tired of it telling me I can or cannot do stuff. So I have to learn to shift my mindset from being a consumer to being an owner. And how do we do that, y'all? We become an investor in ourselves, in our businesses, in our families. And we're going to learn how we're going to do that here. But first, let's talk about what is the definition of wealth. So, wealth here, as you can see, again, quoting Mr. Suni Samad, money grows on trees when you realize money is the seed and the harvest. What does that mean? Well, we're going to use money in order and make it work for us in order to get more money. And the way we're going to do that is a few slides from now. So, I don't know about you guys, but this was a phrase I heard every day growing up. Money doesn't grow on trees. How many of you have heard that quote before? Exactly. Well, funny story, you guys. Growing up in Hawaii, we actually had a tree in the backyard called the Plio Mele Hawaiiensis. We called the money tree. And as kids, we would take the leaves off these trees, and it became our currency when we played store and house, etc. That's how we paid for our goods and services when we were kids. I think it's hilarious to be told now that money doesn't grow on trees because I thought it did. So symbolically speaking, in Hawaii, money does grow on trees. Symbolically speaking, if we look at Mr. Samad's quote here, money does grow on trees when you do realize that the seed, the money itself is the seed and the harvest. So let's get to the best part of this presentation, the wealth formula. How do you cultivate your money tree? By using the wealth formula. And why is this important? Because I know I cannot work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because I will get sick and I will definitely complain. So if you work 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life and you earn an average salary of about $50,000 a year, in your entire life, you're going to make about $2 million. But what if you had employees like Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, and Benjamin Franklin working for you 24/7, 365? It could be possible to make that 2 million in considerably less time and with a lot less work on your part. So what would be more valuable? $2 million earned over 40 years or 2 million earned over 5 or 10 years? I kind of like 5 or 10 years to make 2 million because then I can do something more with that 2 million over the next 5 or 10 years. So how do we do this? Time plus capital plus rate of return minus inflation minus taxes equals wealth. So making that money work for us is going to ultimately result in wealth if we follow this formula. So shall we master money, or shall we let money continue to master us? I want to learn how to master money. That is me all day. So let me now introduce you to two friends of mine, Mr. Start Early, or in my case, Ms. Start Early, and Ms. Start Late. Both of them are 25. They're working really good jobs, and they have about $1,000 a month in disposable income. Well, after learning about the wealth formula, Ms. Start Early decides she's ready to grow and cultivate her money tree. So she starts saving $300 a month or $3,600 a year in a vehicle that earns a good amount of interest, 8%. Her $3,600 are the seeds, and the 8% interest is the soil. For every year that goes by, first year, second year, you can see that Ms. Start Early's money starts to add up. First year total, she puts in $3,600. She gets $3,888 by the end of the first year. Second year, that money has already doubled because she has added another $3,600. By the time she reaches year 7, she has put in $34,692 total, right? That's where we're at. But at that point, because Ms. Start Early learned about the wealth formula, she's no longer having to put money in, but that money is still working for her and growing and growing and growing, so that by the time she reaches 48, and Ms. Start Late is talking about, well, shucks, are you still doing that thing where you're putting $300 a month into a vehicle of savings? And Ms. Start Early says, yeah, I am. And Ms. Start Late says, well, how's that going for you? And so she tells her how that's going, shows her how much she has. And Ms. Start Late says, oh, well, I guess I need to jump on that now and start cultivating my money tree. So Ms. Start Late starts at age 32, putting in $3,600 every year. And by the time Ms. Start Late reaches 48, she too has $131,221, about the same, actually a little bit more than Ms. Start Early. And why is this? Well, I mean, they put the same contributions in and it spent a good chunk of time, but the amount of time that it took her to get there required a lot more money. So the total contribution Ms. Start Early put in is $25,200. And as you remember, she stopped putting money in 7 years into this. So at age 32. Ms. Start Late had to put in from age 32 to age 48 and put in a total contribution of $61,200. So there is a nearly $35,000 difference in the amount of money they've had to invest to get to the same total amount. Well, the reason being is this fabulous chart here. So if you're still following me, put a 1 in the chat. Oh, Kim, look at that. You got one of the money trees in your backyard too, I see. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks, Marlena, for putting that in the chat. So let's talk 72 and rate of return. Basically, the quality of your soil, that 8% interest, is going to determine the quantity of your harvest. So the rule of 72 says any interest rate divided into 72 is going to determine how long it takes for your principal to double. As an example, in this image here, you can see we've got, we're using a 29-year-old, excuse me, 29-year-old with $10,000 as our base, as our common denominator. At 1% interest, it will double, the $10,000 will double in 72 years. 4% interest, that amount is going to double every 18 years. At 8% interest, it's going to double every 9 years. So that 10,000 will become 160,000 by age 65. Now, if you're lucky enough that you've got a 10% interest rate, which I know I don't have in my savings account, y'all, but there are other vehicles that will give you this 10%. It's going to double every 7.2 years, so that instead of having 160,000 at age 65, you're going to have double that at 320,000. So let's talk about this. If the average American is retiring on a 401k or a 403b with $87,000, what went wrong? They probably were in several different options here, right? They're probably in a fixed strategy with a low interest rate, or they could be in a volatile index strategy that loses money, which is more than likely what's happening. So if you're 29-year-old, what is the one thing that inevitably ends up happening? I know it happened for me. I end up with some financial emergency, and I ended up having to borrow from my 401k. So I've depleted money out of my 401k. Hence the reason I have less than 87,000 in my 401k. Now, the first time I did that, it was truly a sincere need. I needed that money. I had to take care of some debt that just was something I could not ignore. But now, 5 years down the road, I had to borrow from my 401k again. But it became a lot easier because I could justify it, in my mind at least. The dilemma is that it became easier each time I had an emergency to justify drawing money out of my 401k. So what does that mean for me now? It means I have very little money in my 401k in which to retire. This is a huge issue for a lot of Americans. A lot. They end up not having money to retire on because of a situation just like this. So, why is it important for us to be intentional on our wealth journey? Anybody? Put some thoughts in the chat. Or open your mic. Feel free to open up your mic.
To be prepared is one of the reasons why you really want to get a handle on it.
Awesome. Thank you, Hans. Any other thoughts, anyone? Well, what does it mean to be intentional? Do we want to invest our money in a low bearing interest account, or do we want to put our money in a high interest bearing account? Because I know when I was growing up, I was told, open a savings account and a checkings account and start saving money from the time I was, 8 years old and cutting grass and making a few dollars. Um, and I was told to leave it alone, just keep putting it in there. And I did that, and I did that, and I did that. And I did end up with some savings, but I really quickly noticed that I wasn't making a whole lot of interest on the money I was saving. The thousands and thousands of hard-earned dollars I was saving from the time I was 8 years old wasn't accounting to much. But that's what my parents told me to do, and I believed them. So, what do banks have to do with our money? What do they do with our money? They purchase bank-owned life insurance. So all our money is being invested by banks. Everything that we put in our savings account, they're investing. In return, they give you a tiny little bit of the interest, the profit that they've earned. Usually that's about 0.02%. Does anybody know what the interest rate on a cash value life insurance policy has been over the last 20 years? 5%? 6%? 7%? It's between 8 and 10%. So if all of these banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, PNC, Truist Bank are purchasing bank-owned life insurance policies, and you can see on this slide, some of them have $24 billion in cash value life insurance. They're making an average of 8 to 10%. Why are they giving me 0.02%? Don't you think they could give us more? But they're not. They're not going to give us more because they're making profits. So why can't we do this ourselves? We can. We most definitely can. So, in order to understand this a little bit better, let's talk about how our money grows. Banks love to operate on the far left of this image in the fixed rates. They give you slow, fixed gains. That's where that 0.02% that they give us every month or every quarter, every year on our money that we're saving with them. In the middle, you'll see the variable interest, which represents the stock market. Goes up, it goes down, comes back up again. There's a high potential for loss. So if I have $1,000 and that stock market under the variable loses 10%, I've lost $100. I only have 900 now. If the stock goes back up 10%, I still haven't made back all my money because I only gained $90. So I have $990. I still lost $10. How many more times do I have to go up and down, and how much more money do I have to lose before I start using my head? Well, that's why we want to look at the indexed side, the far right of this. The index strategy that says zero floor or zero is my hero. So when the stock market goes up, my money goes up. When the stock market goes down, I don't lose any money, zero. Hence, the zero is my hero. And the reason for this is our money is not really participating in the stock market. It just mimics the market. So with this invested in index strategy, you're going to look back retroactively at what the market did over the last year. So if I put money in there today, next year on 4/7, I am going to look and see what the stock market did over the last year. And if the market did 10%, I'll get some kind of interest credit that accounts for that gain. In the event that the market goes down, Below zero, I lose nothing, but I also don't make anything either. And that's fine by me because my initial investment is still protected. So how would you like your money to grow? Anybody want to stay on the fixed side? Be safe, make a few, percentages a year? Or do we want to stay over on the index side where we could make 10% in a year? We also know we're never going to lose our money. I'm all for the indexed. So how do we factor in inflation in all of this? Exactly, index. Index is the way to go, everyone. So how do we factor inflation to all of this? Because I know how much I put in my gas tank today. It was not pretty. I had a tank. I admit I still had a half a tank of gas, but I went and filled up. And unfortunately, my car takes premium. So I was paying the big dollars. I ended up putting $50 worth um to fill up my tank, half of my tank. I don't want to see. I took my son's truck last week, you guys, to fill up the tank for him, and he literally was on E. The light was on and everything. He drives a Chevy Silverado, and I put my car in the pump, and I watched the numbers click up and up and up and up, and I was like, when is it gonna stop? How much more money am I dollars to fill his tank with regular unleaded? So I know that we are dealing with times of money being worth less than we expect it to be. We're dealing with these inflation prices. So over the last 10 years, the inflation rate has been averaging about 2.91%, probably a little more right now. But on average, we're only gaining about 3%. Let me rephrase that. Hold on. The value of our dollar is decreasing an average of 3%. So unless the money I'm earning is growing interest that supersedes that inflation rate, I'm losing money. You're losing money. So how do we combat that? Well, we've got a couple of different things. We've got to talk about this taxing too, because as much as I do, Trump's out there taxing us galore right now. Kinds of things. What's that? The new tariffs that he put in place is causing us to pay higher prices. Higher prices means more tax. So how do we combat that? We need to start talking about saving our money in order, in a way that is going to be beneficial to us. So I know for me, taxes have increased over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Do we think it's going to continue to decrease or increase, or is it going to decrease on us 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If you agree that it's going to increase, put an 8 in the chat. Most definitely. So how do we combat all of this? We're going to use life insurance as an investment tool, right, guys? There is a beautiful tax code, IRS tax code 7702, that says that if you are growing money in the stock market, but it is attached to a genuine life insurance contract, that it cannot be classified as gross income and therefore cannot be taxed. So we want to be over here in this tax-free retirement, right? In the life insurance bucket. But let's talk about these other buckets first. So tax now, your mutual funds, your stocks, your CDs, your savings accounts. You're going to put money into this bucket with after-tax money, and you're going to have taxed growth. So any income potential that you would see with this, you're going to get taxed on it. Then you have your tax deferred bucket. This is where most of us are familiar. 401ks. Our employers give us, access to saving money in a 401k. You have your IRAs, you have your annuities, and you have your 403bs. This is before tax money that gets taxed when you decide to withdraw it. I don't like to give Uncle Sam my money, so I'd rather be over here in the tax-free retirement with the Roth IRAs and the um, life insurance policies where after-tax money is grown tax-free. If you agree, put a 1 in the chat. So, what is this wealth formula strategy? And why are we using it? So your greatest asset is the ability to produce an income. If you cannot work and make an income, you cannot live. I mean, I know that for a fact, that if I can't work, my bills aren't going to get paid. The second greatest asset we have is how well can we protect it, right? So using a index universal life product, which is the example here, you get protection of your money whether you die too soon or you become ill or you live too long. And it is a way to stay in the tax-free realm where you're putting in after-tax money and you're getting tax-free growth. So how does this work? How do I protect my money from the what ifs? What if I pass away tomorrow? What if I become critically ill and I can't work any longer? Or what if a really good life and I've outlived my ability to produce income? This strategy is a 20-year funding period. This example shows $156 a month with a rate of return between 6.42% and 15.88%. Again, it's in that tax advantaged growth bucket. So does this supersede current inflation rates? Yeah. At 6.42 or up to 15.88? Absolutely. So the growth of investment account, as I said, the 7702 IRS code 7702 cannot be classified as income and therefore cannot be taxed. Unlike your 401k, you can actually use your money while you're still alive. So you can take a loan against your money and avoid taxes and penalties. So if you don't have to die to use your insurance, how does that work? I mean, no one ever told me that with a life insurance policy. I was always ever told that I had to die first before anyone got money. Well, we're not going to. We are protected under these investment strategies while we're still living. We get to have those benefits. So how does it work? By compounding interest, point-to-point indexing, and we participate only in the gains and not the losses. So zero is my hero again. And this goes further to show how that interest rate over the last, 10 years plus, how that has trended for us to be able to really use this life insurance policy as an income strategy, right? Because I don't know how many of you are around during the housing market crash of 2008. I was actually a real estate agent during that time. But I focused on, unfortunately, the sadder side of real estate, the foreclosures, the short sales. I worked with the banks to help them recuperate their assets. But a lot of my real estate friends were working the seller and buyer market instead. and they took a very hard hit in their real estate businesses. Not just the homeowners who took some serious hits because they lost value in their homes, but the real estate agents that were helping with all of that also, a lot of them just went out of business. They just packed up shop and left. Could they have been protected by using this wealth formula strategy? Absolutely, because it's been relatively steady throughout this crisis. COVID-19. How many businesses do you guys know of that closed up during COVID? I mean, unfortunately, I worked for some place that still worked. We were 24/7, it seemed. We had multiple shifts and we were constantly fueling the blood supply for hospitals who were dealing with a lot of sick individuals during this time. So if you were in an index strategy during these two crises, while you may not have gained anything on your money, you definitely wouldn't have lost. I lost, y'all. My 401k. So let's protect ourselves. Let's protect ourselves. Let's teach other people to protect themselves. Our friends, our families, the people who are important to us, the stranger in the grocery store who you know has been working their job for 20, 30 plus years that no one has ever talked to about keeping their money safe, who has been, putting away in their 401k for years and had no idea that their money was losing growth, or that they've lost thousands of dollars over the years. So we are licensed financial professionals. We're qualified to work with anyone, and we will customize a strategy for you, for your loved ones. And we ensure that we meet with our clients every 6 months or more to guide and coach them through their financial needs. And why do we do this? Because we care about you and we care about your money. We care about your family and the protection that they need if something happens to you. So, did you all find this valuable? If you did, put a heart in the chat, put a heart on the screen. And let's go out there and think about who we can talk to. Who do we know that needs our help? And that's it, y'all. Thank you for coming tonight, and I appreciate y'all being here, and it has been absolutely my pleasure to serve our platform. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you, Jen.
Night.
Thank you. Great
Thank you,
job,
Jen.
Jen.